Japan has the most advanced high-speed rail network on the planet. Trains that arrive within 15 seconds of their scheduled time, year after year. A level of precision most countries can't manage on a good day. And yet, if you trace some of those same rail lines out past the edges of Tokyo, past Osaka, past the cities everyone knows, you'll eventually reach a station where the train simply stops coming. Not because the tracks are broken, because there's almost no one left to ride them. There's a word for what's waiting at the end of those lines. It's called Genkai Shuraku, and it doesn't just mean a small village. It means a village at its limit. The term was coined by a sociologist named Akira Ono back in the 1990s, and the definition is oddly precise for something this human. A Genkai Shuraku is any community where more than half the residents are 65 or older. Once you cross that line, the sociology gets specific. It's not just that a place is old, it's that a place stops being able to function as a place. Think about what a village actually needs to keep running, day to day. Someone to carry the shrine during festival season. Someone to clear snow off the shared roads in winter. Someone to farm the terraced rice fields that have been worked by the same families for 400 years. Someone to sit on the small local council that decides how the irrigation gets split between neighbors. Genkai Shuraku is the word for what happens when there simply aren't enough hands left to do any of it, when a place still has a name on the map, but not the people required to keep the map accurate. This isn't a rare, isolated phenomenon either. Japan's own land ministry has surveyed rural communities nationwide and counted more than 10,000 settlements that meet this threshold. Hundreds of them have already been quietly reclassified, with an even colder label settlements with, essentially, no future. Places where researchers aren't asking if the village will disappear. They're asking when. To understand how a place gets here, it helps to go back to how these villages were built in the first place. Many of them date back centuries, mountain communities organized around a single crop, a single trade, or a single shrine, deliberately isolated by geography. For most of Japan's history, that isolation was a strength. It kept communities tight-knit, self-sufficient, resistant to outside disruption. But the same isolation that once protected these villages is exactly what's killing them now. When the post-war economy pulled an entire generation toward Tokyo and Osaka for factory and office work, the villages that depended on young labor simply never got that labor back. Decade after decade, one migration wave after another, until what's left is disproportionately old, not because people are dying at unusual rates, but because almost no one under 50 ever stayed to replace them. Here's how the collapse actually plays out, step by step, and it's rarely dramatic. It starts with the school. A village might have had one elementary school for 100 years, and then one year, there just aren't enough children to keep the classroom open. The building gets shuttered, sometimes turned into a small local museum, sometimes just left standing, windows intact, chalkboards still up, as if class might resume any day. Losing the school is usually the first visible sign that a community has passed a point it won't come back from, because a village without a school is, structurally, a village no young family will move into. After that, the festivals start to change. In small Japanese towns, local festivals often revolve around carrying a mikoshi, a portable shrine, through the streets on the shoulders of a dozen or more able-bodied people. When there aren't enough of them left, the festival gets smaller, gets postponed, or eventually stops happening at all. And a festival that stops happening tends to take something else with it: the reason neighbors still gather, still know each other, still feel like a village, instead of just a cluster of houses that happen to share a postal code. Then it's the road maintenance. Then the bus route, cut because ridership doesn't justify the fuel cost. To put the scale of this in perspective, some researchers project that at the current rate, Japan could see well over 10% of its existing settlements vanish entirely within the coming decades, not relocated, not merged with a neighboring town, just gone. The way a word disappears from a language once no one's left to speak it. And unlike a factory closing or a company going bankrupt, there's no single event to point to. No headline day, just a slow subtraction, one household at a time, until the subtraction is complete. Then, eventually, sociologists studying these villages have described something almost unbearably specific, waiting for what they sometimes call the last funeral. Not a metaphor, the literal death of the final original resident, which quietly marks the practical end of that village's centuries-long history. No ceremony marks that ending. No news crew shows up. The village just stops appearing in the next census. You'd think the obvious solution is simple: get younger people to move in. And the government has genuinely tried. There are national and local programs offering subsidized housing, free farmland, direct cash incentives just to relocate to these areas in some towns. You can move into a fully renovated traditional house for next to nothing, sometimes literally for free, on the condition that you commit to staying and contributing to the community for a set number of years. Almost no one takes them up on it, and the reason isn't really about money. By the time a village becomes a Genkai Shuraku, the housing was never the actual problem. The hospital already closed. The nearest full-service supermarket might be an hour's drive away. The jobs already left decades ago. The school, the one thing that might convince a young family with children to seriously consider staying, is already gone. You can give someone a house for free, but you can't undo the 20 years of infrastructure that quietly disappeared before they ever got the offer. What's easy to miss, from the outside, is that staying isn't always about being stuck. Researchers who've spent real time in these communities have talked to elderly residents who explain their choice not as denial, but as something closer to loyalty to land their family has occupied for generations, to the graves of relatives they're not willing to leave untended, to a version of home that simply doesn't exist anywhere else, in any city, no matter how convenient. It's not always a tragedy playing out in slow motion. Sometimes it's just a decision, made with clear eyes, about what actually matters to someone in the last chapter of a long life, even when that decision means being one of the last people left. And that's the part of Japan most visitors never see. And honestly, most Japanese people in Tokyo rarely think about either. The country markets itself, accurately, as a place of extraordinary modern efficiency. Bullet trains, robotics, cities that run on a level of precision most of the world can't match. But that same country is also quietly losing a meaningful share of its own geography, one village at a time, largely out of view of the people who only ever experience Tokyo and Kyoto. I keep coming back to that image of the train line that just stops carrying passengers. Not shut down all at once, in one dramatic announcement, just slowly, over decades, until one day the schedule board doesn't bother listing that stop anymore, and nobody who still lives in Tokyo notices it's gone. There's something almost gentle about how it happens, which somehow makes it stranger. No headline, no single dramatic moment. Just fewer and fewer people, year after year, until the word Japan uses for the place quietly changes from village to limit. I don't know what the right ending for these places actually looks like, whether they should be preserved at real cost, allowed to disappear naturally, or something in between that nobody's figured out yet. Subscribe if you want to keep sitting with questions like that one with me, one word at a time.